My next project is this tall 5-drawer dresser that a previous client who purchased this 6-drawer dresser wants me to refinish in the same paint and hardware. I'm going to start by cleaning everything real well. I use Crud Cutter degreaser, and a lot of people ask me, why do I bother to clean it before I'm going to sand it? You just never know what people had on their furniture as far as waxes and furniture polish, so we try to get off there. Going to remove all the hardware. I've got a drawer that's really sticky, and I saw that it was just this guide is bent, so a little rubber mallet to solve that problem real quick, and boom, just fine. We're going to be changing out the hardware, so I need to fill in those holes, and I'm going to be using some all-purpose Bondo. This is my little Bondo kit. It has everything in it that I need. You just take a dollop, some cream hardener. How much exactly? Yeah, about that much. There's really no formula. Mix it up real well. And then I'm using a Bondo spreader. If you don't have one of these, it's a good thing to have because it actually makes this a lot easier. And why do I keep taking it off and putting it back on? Because I'm pushing it into the hole. I don't want to just have it a really thin layer in the hole. I actually want to fill that entire hole. So I just keep pushing it in and scraping it off. While I'm waiting for the Bondo to dry, I'm actually going to take these drawers out because they are much easier to sand in that position. This dresser is made of particle board. The veneer on it is actually paper, which is okay. We can still refinish it. Just got to do a few things differently. But I've got a few areas that are coming apart, so I've got to put those back together. Wood glue is perfect. Just going to put a little wood glue in there, use some painter's tape to secure it until it dries. I have a number of areas around the dresser I have to take care of. And this bottom trim piece is totally secure on one side and not on the other. So I decided to use some wood glue in several areas. And just to secure it, I'm going to put some brad nails in there. And clamp it while that glue is drying. Back to the drawers. The Bondo is dry now, so I'm going to sand that. Just want to sand it smooth, and then I'm going to scuff the rest of the drawer. Again, this is a paper veneer, so the second you touch it with a sander, it pretty much just comes off. I switched to a pad on my Surf Prep so that I could get the rounded edges. See, it just conforms to the round areas there. You could certainly do this by hand with just a sanding sponge. Surf Prep just makes quick work of these types of areas. And then back to traditional sandpaper for this flat area. The bottom of this had some chips and dents and things, so while I was doing Bondo on the drawers for the holes, I went ahead and just put a little bit along the bottom here. I also want to scuff sand the entire cabinet of the dresser. I have this sitting on dollies laying down, which is nice. You can just spin it around. And again, back to the pad, just to get those rounded areas. Scuff sand the sides. This is just so the paint will adhere better. And again, being that this is particle board, I'm going to add some little plastic feet. They're not terribly big, but just enough to help keep this up off the floor a little bit. Into the tint we go. And I'm going to start with a different primer than I normally use because, again, this is a paper veneer. And you just have to do things a little differently. And if I go in with my traditional water-based primer and put a nice coat on there, I think that the paper is going to be affected by it. And it may come loose, it may bubble, all kinds of things. So I'm going to start with this Zinsser 123 in a spray can. And welcome to my paint lab. So, as I mentioned, I have to make this look like the other dresser, and I only have a tiny bit of that paint left. Thankfully, I saved a little bit of it, so I do know what color it was, but now I have to try and replicate it. I'm pretty sure I know what I was doing when I made that color, and I want to say I did 2 parts black and 1 part elemental gray. This is bold black and elemental gray. It's an almost black color. It just has some depth to it with the gray. And this is the little bit of paint that I did save, so I'm going to take my stir stick and get a good sample of it so that I can try to compare the two. Okay, here we go. Hey, that's pretty stinking close. I think we'll take that. So some of the veneer did peel. Nothing some wood glue won't fix. So I have wood glue in a syringe with a big, like an 18 gauge needle on it. Just press it just to make sure you've got glue everywhere. I wiped the glue off and then really pressing down firmly with some tape, wrapping it around the edge so that it will just be secure while that dries. This actually worked perfectly. So after I was finished with this, the veneer was perfect there. I'm taking one of my Surf Prep sanding sponges. This I would normally have on my sander, but this one's kind of at the end of its life, so I decided to use it for sanding my primer. And now I'm going to go in with some shellac because I'm feeling like I want to seal this dresser because of the paper before I go in with paint. I also want to go ahead and, this is 7.5 inches for my hardware. I want to go ahead and drill the holes and everything so that I have that ready to go before I start putting paint on. So I have a jig that I'm setting up, again, setting the holes at 7.5 inches. My drawers are 8 inches, so I'm setting the depth to 4 inches. The drawer is much longer than my jig, so I just measure center, and then I can put my jig right in the middle and go ahead and mark my holes. And now I'm going to drill all the holes while I have primer, so if I mess up on anything, easy enough to fix, and I don't have to go back and fix my paint. Okay, I'm trying something different here. Normally, I paint with all the drawers in, and then at the end, I take the drawers out and I touch up behind it. And I thought this time I'm gonna do the touch up first. I'm gonna paint behind the drawers. So we'll see how that works. So you can see I've painted behind the drawers. I'm gonna be adding some of these adjustable screws that we get with the hardware that I usually throw out. I save some of them so that I can use them as temporary handles. And the transformation begins. So this is my almost black paint. I'm using farmhouse paint here, which has become my absolute favorite paint to paint with. It dries so quickly, it levels out nicely, it cures in 24 hours. It's just amazing paint. Now I am taking a sanding sponge, and I always sand between coats because that's what's going to give that amazing finish. I wanted to do these coats super thin because, again, of paper veneer. So because of the paper veneer, I'm doing really thin coats. It may look splotchy, but I did 3 coats, so now it's completely covered. And you'll see I'm using my little temporary handle so I can pull that out and let everything dry. And now the top coat. I tint my top coat also with a little bit of the paint. Time for hardware. Using some simple modern handles to coordinate well with those long poles that went with the original dresser. One quick look back at where we started, and here we are. Do you think this coordinates along well with the other dresser that we did? I think so. I hope you like it.